Hi Uditha, it's Emily Highfield. Thank you for sending me the questions. I'm going to answer them in the best way that I can, and thank you for having me on your YouTube channel. The first question is, I would like to know how it all began. So could you tell me how you started your musical journey as a solo artist and how Suldusk began? Suldusk began by myself writing pieces that I wanted to hear, I guess, wanting to create a very acoustic based sound but still metal infused, so that it was quite intense but very acoustically driven. I started doing that by myself and then recruited a couple of musicians to help me bring it to life on the album. So that's essentially how it started. The second question is, how would you describe your sound to someone who hasn't heard your music? I usually gauge to see whether that person is into metal or not, because if they're into metal, I'll usually say, have you heard of Agaloch and Opeth? Because they're the point of reference for the sound at some level. They are very inspiring bands and they really do provide that acoustically driven sound that I was talking about before. So if someone's not into metal, then it's always a bit more challenging. So I'll usually say it's more gothic folk. So it's folk music, but it's definitely got a darker flavour to it. The third question is, what was the appeal in acoustic neo-folk music, post-rock music and atmospheric black metal music for you? All those different genres of darker flavoured music are appealing to me because the emotion behind those genres is very much what I feel comfortable expressing myself in. I love neo-folk music because of the intricacy of the acoustic guitar. I love post-rock because it's very open and expansive and very emotionally driven guitar music using effects. And I love atmospheric black metal because of the shrieking vocals. So it just allows that edge to come through where you can have melancholy, but there's also some more teeth to it because it's also anchored in that sort of expression of anger or release more than anger even. So there's those three elements. I absolutely love them. So yeah, I wanted to combine it. The next question is, your debut album, Lunar Falls, excuse me, was simply an enchantment. Do you wish to continue making the same type of music in the future, or do you wish to experiment on other genres and subgenres of metal as well? Thank you so much for calling the album an enchantment. It really was a joy to make and to see the songs being rounded out by cellists and drummers and other session musicians, and really elevating the idea behind the songs when I took them to the producer. I will definitely keep making the same style of music, which is melodically driven, vocally driven, guitar music, really, but it's definitely in the darker flavours. In terms of experimenting with other genres, I still write acoustically, and I've been writing, again, more acoustically driven sounds, but now I have a band with me, so they are all bringing their strengths. So they are bringing even more intricate acoustic passages and even more post-metal sounds and blast beats. I've got an amazing drummer called Frankie Demuru, who's just like blast beat king. So definitely more of that. And I'm also working with Shane Mulholland, who's pretty much an incredible guitarist who knows about textures and can really create that post-metal and atmospheric black metal sound. And also Josh Taylor, who's a classically trained guitarist who can also elevate that side of things as well. And an amazing bass player as well called Daniel Green, who doesn't just provide that lower frequency which the bass does, but he really delves into getting as much out of that space in the tracks as he can. So he challenges himself, and I feel very lucky to have a pretty amazing group of musicians. So we'll be delving into other subgenres as well, probably more folk, more extreme, but more folk, a little bit more black metal, and definitely more post-metal. The next question is, what do you think takes the most amount of time to compose? I'd say arranging is the question I have now, because that's something I really want to play with. The album Lunar Falls was pretty much a traditional arrangement through the songs. Only Sovereign Shrines was the track that was kind of in sections rather than coming back to a refrain. So this time it's more experimental and the arrangements are way more open. So I'm very excited, and I'm not sure if it'll take longer or shorter, but so far so good. It's nothing's taking too long. The next question is, what do you think is the greatest achievement of your band so far? I would say being able to reach people from all around the world. The vinyl sold to people in Iceland, it sold to people in Portugal, Germany, Israel, so many different countries in Asia, US, Australia. For me, that's been probably the most exciting factor. Sri Lanka, of course. Just so many different countries, so many different people who love this style of music and really are thirsty for it. It just made me so heartened to keep going and really create more music, and also create the band so that we can actually travel and present people with the sound in a live way. So that'll be happening over the next few years. Next question is, what kind of a response have you had for your music internationally? Oh, well, this ties in with the last question. It is just a real amazing feeling to have people from all around the world connect with music. I thought it was a very humble first album. I didn't really have any massive aspirations for it. I hoped that people would like it, and yeah, I'm very happy that a lot of people have connected with it from all around the world. Who would you say are your biggest musical influences as a musician? There are a lot, but as I mentioned before, probably Agaloch and Opeth, Alia Starbridge from Trees of Eternity was a vocal influence. I love the way she vocalized without having to always really kind of project too loudly. There's a real intensity in being quite softly spoken, even in metal, because it just depends on the passages. But of course, I do love being able to do other kinds of vocals too. Other influences, there's for me, there's so many different artists that I love. I just don't think I could even articulate how many, but yeah, atmospheric black metal, folk music, traditional metal, thrash, technical death metal, all sorts of subgenres of metal. But I also absolutely love good vocalists. So people like Steve Wilson and people like Chelsea Wolfe and Marissa Nadler, who have their own style, really wonderful artists. What are your thoughts about elitism in black metal music, and how has it affected you as a female musician? It's a little bit of a concern. I haven't had a backlash like Paul Merker getting death threats and stuff like that. I think because the record label that released my album, even though he's known for atmospheric black metal, he really didn't promote it as a black metal album, because it actually isn't. It delves in some elements of atmospheric black metal, not a lot though. It's definitely more a folk driven, like blackened folk album. So I was lucky that the marketing side of it wasn't pushed as black metal, even though black metal promotions uploaded the album on YouTube, and there were a few anti comments, but I didn't take it to heart, because I understand that some people are very protective about that genre, and that's their right to be like that. I wish they didn't have to be nasty about it, but it is what it is. As a female, it doesn't really affect me. I think it's more elitism in music in general is something that I don't like. Music is such a personal taste. It's like food. You can't subject someone to your taste if that's just not what they're into, and you can't also be protective and say, well, I only certain people are allowed to like certain kind of music, or certain people are allowed to do certain types of music. So it hasn't really affected me in a very overt way. Perhaps in a more insidious way, but they're the ones that I don't hear about. They're the ones that happen behind closed doors, but I really don't care. Are you involved in other side projects apart from Suldusk? I have been roped into a few collaborations. So there's my friends in the deep black metal underground called Auto Malum, and that's Tahazu and Scathana Wept. They are like what I would call the real raw one-man basement black metal dudes, and I absolutely love them. They're my brothers that encouraged me on SoundCloud to keep going, and so yeah, they've got a collaboration I'd like to work on with them, and yeah, there's those guys. So I guess I am involved a little bit. I've got a friend doing a Doom project, so a little bit of help on that. An artist called Lang, who I'm helping with, and I also did some guest vocals for Hiratoire, who are more post metal, and that was a real delight because I absolutely love their work. How is the metal scene in Australia? It's quite healthy, it's quite vibrant. I think it's going pretty strongly. I got word this week that my project will be featuring at an awards show. This is pretty much unheard of for any heavy band. So it's a very strong scene. There's lots of metalheads here, and there's lots of support for touring bands as well. So to answer that, I would say quite a healthy scene. What would you like to say to the folks visiting my YouTube channel? I would say this is awesome, and yeah, please support these journalists who are supporting underground metal, and this is awesome, and thank you for having me. On another note, will you be interested in performing in Sri Lanka? Because bands like As I Lay Dying, Rotting Christ, Demonic Resurrection have already done so. Absolutely. I think the key is to have the band and to have the time and money to travel. Being self-funded, essentially. These days, most bands are precluded because of financials. But I believe where there's a will, there's a way. So, yeah, it really depends on whether a good promoter reaches out and helps us with details. Says here, thanks a lot once again for taking your precious time to talk to me, and thank you for having me, and all the very best with your YouTube channel, and speak to you soon again.